We are slowly progressing closer and closer to the full release of Wuthering Waves coming this May, which a lot of us are still really excited for. However, as to be expected with the game coming ever closer to release and making last minute changes, Kuro has been receiving more and more criticism on the state of the game and some other steps that they've been taking to remedy some of those things. I don't want to necessarily white knight a company because I don't think companies deserve that degree of loyalty. However, I want to make sure when we are throwing criticism at a company that's producing a game that a lot of us are really excited for, I want to make sure that that criticism is really well met. And I've been seeing some stuff floating around right now that feels kind of off base, or at the very least way overblown, and I want to talk about a little bit of that today. So over here on the screen here, our boy Styx. If you haven't seen Styx on YouTube before, I've watched a lot of his content. He does a lot of just general gacha related content, covers a lot of new games, great stuff. But he has this video, Wuthering Waves just made a shocking announcement, kind of touching on what some of the criticism has been coming Kuro's way with some of the changes that they're making. And I want to talk about a few of those because, like I said, I do think a lot of them are blown out of proportion. So let's go in, let's take a look at this. I'm going to have a link to the original video in the description down below, so make sure to drop a like and subscribe to Styx if you haven't already. Let's go in and take a look.
One of the localizers for Wuthering Waves comments on localization quality thus far. Miko made a tweet saying that Wuthering Waves localization is kinda doomed, like misspelling on the MB for the headphones warning and an error on a pre-registration milestone announcement. Like, do they not have proofreaders? I swear they need to hire like overseas translators. It's gonna bite the game in the ass in the end. And honestly, I don't disagree with that. Asteria, who is one of the localizers, went down to say, I'm so sorry about this. Everyone is overworked. I caught like 10 typos, slept for 4 hours the day before to wake up at 7 a.m. to continue trying to catch typos, but more still popped up in the end. We're rapidly expanding our team and we'll have dedicated proofreaders.
So I'm not going to defend this. This is the consequence of crunch. This is the consequence of pushing a deadline for publishing a game when you do still have quite a bit of work to go, where people are now being pressured into crazy work hours to meet deadlines and to make this stuff happen. I'm not going to defend this. I don't think it's good. I understand that like overtime in the regular working world is a thing and you get paid time and a half for it and people are compensated for it, and some people like working overtime. But I think kind of the overall culture around game development crunch, I think is not quite there. It's not quite as healthy as it could be or where it should be. And so I'm not going to defend that. I'm not going to defend that. I don't think that there should be that kind of pressure on the localizers and the developers to make that happen. I think if anything, it can have a lot of negative consequences with things still slipping through and potentially even degrading the quality of the product, which they kind of address here with talking about what was even in that, the special animation for the headphones, you know, that spelling mistake and stuff still slipping through. So like I said, I'm not defending that. That's fair.
Which is good. It is good to know that they are in fact expanding. I do think overworking a few people is definitely what led to the issues that we are currently experiencing. Previously, our team has been very small, so everyone, including the person we hired to do QA, had to do a bit of everything from translating to project managing. 70+ hours work week is very common. Luckily, we've convinced the higher ups to hire more people. So they had one person working multiple jobs.
That's wild.
Including translating to project management. Dude, that is just like, I love Kudo. They are a fantastic studio when it comes to friendliness, professionalism, but they need to get their shit together because this is just disappointing.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Kind of addressing what I just was saying before, that like I think that's like insane. That's not like a sustainable like amount of hours that a developer can have. I think that's going to lead to like insane degrees of burnout. Again, I know this always turns into a huge argument of people in the comments about like, you know, blue collar workers and how hard is this work? And gosh, I fear that people are going to start opening up the streamer hard work conversation again when we talk about this kind of crap. But 70+ hour work weeks is insane. No matter what kind of work you're doing, that's going to lead to insane amounts of burnout. You're definitely not getting enough sleep as you need, or at the very least, you're having like no social life. And that's just like, that's not good. I don't agree with that. They really should have expanded the team sooner or prior to this deadline being put in place. That it doesn't seem like they're on the back foot as what it kind of is starting to look like, which is a bit concerning on that end.
You do not want one single person working multiple jobs under your studio. We are also working on standardizing the workflow so everything that shows up in a video is properly proofread. Apologies, please give us some time. Everyone here loves the project and want to do our best. I have no doubt. I genuinely have no doubt they are absolutely trying their best, but as is evident, the lack of actual individual staff members to adequately and sufficiently cover every aspect of this development and the localization is lacking. This is something they...
That's exactly what I was saying before, that I think this is 100% an executive problem, if that makes sense, where a lot of the developers, the localizers, the people that are actually working on the creation of the game are excited about it, they're passionate about it, and they really want to see Wuthering Waves succeed, but maybe a deadline had been pushed down on them that they are going to have to crunch for. And so like I said, I'm not going to be getting upset at localizers in this case or developers at this case where that's happening. So if people are going on there and like harassing the localizers for doing like a bad job based on what we're seeing here, like I don't agree with that whatsoever. Like they're just trying to make the best of what seems to be a very tough situation. So everybody chill out on there, okay? Let's tone that harassment down.
Definitely need to work on. If people can't understand the game, if it looks unprofessional, then you're doing a disservice to your game. Let's take a look at the Discord message that was posted April 2nd, roughly 12 hours ago as of recording this video. Dear Rovers, during Wuthering Waves Closed Beta 2, we received constructive feedback from players regarding game localization. We'd like to extend our sincere gratitude to you for your support. To improve the quality of game localization, we're now recruiting testers with a focus on localization quality to collect instant player feedback via a small-scale confidential beta test. Please refer to the following information below. So, on the 7th of April, that's 5 days from now, they're going to end the recruitment phase for their next closed beta. The closed beta test is going to be a very small test, and instead of hiring staff to go through and proofread everything themselves, they're recruiting beta testers. So they're not paying staff for this. They're relying on you, me, us to work for free to tell them where they fucked up.
Okay, this is where I start to have a problem with things. So I've seen a little bit of this sentiment starting to be floated around online because I have heard about this recruitment thing that's taking place. I just think that's a bit of like a disingenuous and like bad faith interpretation of what's happening there, because I don't think we're understanding quite like the scope of what's going on in that circumstance. Now, I'm not going to defend that this is a little bit of a situation of Kuro's own making by putting the deadline for when the game is going to be releasing. So again, I'm not arguing that portion. So if anybody tries to say that that's what I'm defending here, that's not what I'm doing. But let's take a look at this and let's walk through it for a second, okay? This is a beta test. Beta tests are optional. You don't have to join it. So only people who are extra passionate, who want to get in here and help solve some of these issues are going to join and do that. And he makes, Styx makes the criticism of like, instead of hiring more people, okay, you don't just hire more people. There's always going to be like an onboarding process. There's an interview process to get connected with people. Then you actually need to go through the onboarding process. There's usually some kind of transitionary period that takes place. And it's not simply like you can just like pull people on in the next 2 days to come on and do the localizing. That's just generally speaking, not how things work. Even if you were to contract out to another localization company, there's usually going to be some negotiation and back and forth for that to happen. And even if you do that, there are still thousands of lines of text that they're going to have to go through in a very short period of time. Again, I understand that that's self-inflicted, not defending that, but the amount that if you have 10,000 beta testers go through and play your game, the amount that they're going to be able to catch in such a short period of time, as opposed to somebody going through every individual line of text, is just going to be actually way more efficient. And especially again, it's voluntary. It's not like they're forcing players to do this. Like there's no extra incentive. It's only people who are passionate about the game. They want it to be a good product. They're going in and doing that. So I think like to the degree that that's being like, I don't know, criticized or harped on, it just doesn't totally make sense to me. Because again, it's not like a snap of a fingers and tomorrow we get like another localization company to come to do that. We hired 4 more localizers onto the team and they're going to start working as of tomorrow. It takes way more time to do that, and it seems like they don't quite have the time to make that process happen. Now, one other thing too, why I would be so hesitant to just grab a random localization company for doing that is you don't know what kind of experience you're going to get from some random contractor localizer, especially with what we've been seeing coming out of the anime industry. We've been seeing a lot of criticism of Western localizers completely restructuring portions of a story because they want it to fit their own sensibilities, let's call it. I'm not trying to get super political here, but there's been multiple instances of these localizers completely flipping portions, jokes, conversations to be in Western sensibilities that they want to see. And a lot of people don't like that. A lot of people want to see a more faithful translation and interpretation of the original art and medium itself. And so you can't just go and grab some random localization company right now to try and get something squished in here in the next month and a half. I think you run more risks of potentially not having the full experience of the game actually come through. There's a lot of risk with doing that. And so to still try and keep things as much in-house as possible, or with localizers you have experience in working with that you can trust to some degree, but then being able to aggregate errors through voluntary experience, I still think is a fairly good way to approach it, especially because as well, we already know they are actively expanding the team. So like Styx makes the joke there of like, oh, they're getting all of us for free to go and find all of the errors. And then instead of paying localizers, we already looked at, and he already pointed out previously in the video that that's exactly what they're doing. They are expanding the team. But again, the rate of onboarding, getting people in here and getting people working through and actually making those changes takes weeks potentially before somebody can actually get on and start doing that. So if they can at the very least start to aggregate errors, aggregate things that need to be addressed, and then as the localization team expands, they can get into addressing the errors instead of reading through thousands and thousands of lines of text to then find the errors. That seems just like a really efficient use of time, especially when it's voluntary. Nobody's forcing the players to do that. Nobody's forcing the players to sign on to this exclusive like NDA and beta to do that. Like it's a process, right? And again, I'm gonna say this for the third freaking time because we have such a bad habit on the internet for people to misinterpret the things that I'm saying, that I again am fully acknowledging that this is partially a problem of Kuro's own making. Not defending that. I'm not. They have said and committed to publishing the game at the end of May or late May, whatever, 22nd, 23rd. And they've decided on that date. And so now they need to crunch to make this happen. Self-inflicted. I get it. I still think there's some more internal politics happening there with executives at the company versus the development team. So again, you can't just say Kuro's at fault here because they're all part of the team. It's more complex than that. But again, acknowledging the situation that it's already happened. The cat's out of the bag. They've opened Pandora's box. They've already committed to releasing the game, and now they need to make these things happen. I don't think that's an unfair approach. I just don't. Now, if you wanted to say, well, I think that they should reward some of these players in some way for choosing to sign on to this beta test, on the official release, that they get like some kind of like benefit or something to do that. Like, okay, maybe I could maybe see you arguing to do something like that. But I think that to the degree that like the criticism like that Styx has been echoing there is the same sentiment that I've seen echoed online about some of this beta test. And like, I don't know. I think that's like a little bit blown out of proportion. Maybe I'm just crazy here. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, but let's keep diving into this.
I mean, you know what? If people are willing to do it, then sure. Who am I to judge? I honestly think it would be more professional to hire an entire team of localizers and have them localize everything, to have them translate everything, to have them proofread, spell check, and make sure the grammar for every sentence in the game is on point.
Okay, there's something else there we didn't actually even talk about either. Like when we're talking about like the grammar and the spell checking in the localization process, something that takes a lot of time is the restructuring of language from its original language to like English. So something that came out, I believe it was in the beta test survey after CBT2, they were asking questions about localization and about what players would like to see in their localization. They were giving comparisons of like, do you think a literal translation is acceptable? And then they gave like, or do you think like an alternative, like creative interpretation is more acceptable. And they gave like 2 displays of the text of like literal, Chinese to English translation. And it sounded a little more robotic. It wasn't structured quite in the same way. And so it needed to have a small amount of reinterpreting for it to flow naturally in an English sentence. So it's not simply just, oh, make sure that all the spelling and grammar is in place. Like it's fully rewriting some portions too. So I think, again, being able to aggregate errors into a portion where the localizing team that they do have can focus on actually doing more of the creative reinterpretation, again, faithful to the source material, I don't think is a terrible approach. And again, like I ranted about it before, I'm not going to keep ranting about it, but it's not just simple to say at this stage, just over a month and a half out, to just like say like, well, yeah, we'll just hire a whole localization team. Like, it's just, in a corporate environment, that it doesn't happen that fast. It just doesn't.
Is perfect. Remember, first impressions are everything. If your game looks like it was translated by a 12-year-old, that is a perception people are going to have of it. During this test, you will experience our latest...
Okay, I need to talk about that for a second too. That's another portion where like, I'm like yes and no. And hold on, let me cook. I feel like I'm going to pull a nay or GG here and everybody's going to be real pissed at me in a hot minute. But I think there's some portions of that are also completely overblown. And some parts of it are totally fair. And this is what I mean. If you have, for example, in a side story quest, there's some letters that are transposed, and it happens a few times where there's a few spelling mistakes that make it through. I think most players will look at that and just kind of chuckle and just be like, like that slipped through. That's not the end of the world. And I really don't think that's going to like completely ruin somebody's first impression of the game, especially people who understand the context of this being from a Chinese developer, that it's being localized in the West. I just, maybe I'm totally off base there, but I just can't see people harping on the game that hard for those small amounts of errors. Where I think it's totally justified, and it is a huge problem, and it has happened in other games in the past, and so it's fair, is if a character's kit is completely mistranslated. Like if you go and either spend money or you've been saving currency in the game and you choose to pull on a character thinking they do one thing on their kit, or that the kit interacts with other characters' abilities in a particular way. And so you either spend that money or that currency that you've been saving only to find out that it was mistranslated. And then now you're out all of that currency and you can't use the character in the way that you want to. And if they had been translated correctly, you probably wouldn't have pulled the character. I can totally have understanding for that, where I would definitely be on the same page in saying, yeah, that's kind of like false advertising. You paid for one product and got something else completely different. And if that is at the consequence of mistranslation and bad localization, then 100% I'm on the side of the player there. Of course, that is unacceptable and should not be happening in a game, especially that's been monetized in this way. I do think that is extremely important. But I think to the degree that some people have been like kind of blowing out of proportion the like a few spelling mistakes and like some side quests and stuff, like I don't know, maybe I'm off base there, but I feel like that's a little bit overblown. But you guys can let me know in the comments down below what you think.
Beta version and be able to express your ideas on game localization through a survey. However, please note that this test is completely confidential. Once selected, you'll need to sign an NDA. Are not allowed to publish any related content or discuss information about this test in public channels. Disclosed beta test is designed for localization improvement and does not represent any other progress of the game development. So again, like I think this is good. They are letting a bunch of people in to fix the issues that they didn't come across themselves, which will only result in a higher quality product in the end. But at the same time, these are things that they should have touched up and worked on actually fixing before deciding May 22nd, 23rd was the release date that they wanted to target. Does this make me less excited for the game? Not at all. I'm actually glad that they're working towards improving the game ahead of their release.
Now, I fully agree with the final sentiment and comments that Styx made there at the end. Again, link to his video will be in the description down below. Make sure to drop a like and subscribe on his channel for taking a look at that video. So the part that I do definitely agree with, though, that he was saying towards the end there is that this is something that should have been addressed prior to announcing the full release of the game. I agree. I just want to make that abundantly clear that I understand that some of this is a self-inflicted wound that now Kuro is trying to stem some of the bleeding on to make sure that they're actually getting the quality that they need in time for the release, and it's resulting in some unfortunate decisions and potentially, at least from a PR perspective, some pretty bad management decisions. But again, I don't think it's fair to paint all of Kuro with one broad brush, because like I said, there's a lot of developers, and I believe that there's a lot of developers and localizers and people who are working on creating the game that do actually care and want to make this happen. So I'm not going to completely go after them or harass devs and localizers for these things that are taking place, when I think, and it is likely the case, that it might have been an upper management decision. Always make sure to keep those kind of things in mind when you are looking at this. And again, I don't think there's anybody here. I got a pretty good community of people here, and so I'm just gonna say, just to cover my bases here, if you're one of those people that's been like harassing a localizer or a dev or something like that in this case, like just stop it. Just stop it, okay? They're just working as best as they can and as hard as they can on this project, again, that we're all excited for. But again, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Did you not like my takes? Do you think I'm a little bit off base here? Did I white knight for Kuro too hard? Did it make you a little bit upset? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear it, because again, this is a dialogue, not a lecture. So I'm always interested in what you guys think. If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to drop a like and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate that. Again, if you want to support the channel, you can do that by subscribing or by joining the Patreon. Shout out to all the patrons who support this channel. Help me do what I do here. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.